The thought of winning a major tournament has resonated within my mind for decades. Across dozens of titles, both cardboard and digital, I've often envisioned the feeling of finishing first. The epic showdown amidst the gathered mass all cheering for a spectacular outcome. I've never tasted that brand of glory, and I've yet to decide whether that's really a bad thing or not. I've never won a tournament, and really, most of you haven't really either. There are no tales of past glory, nor any really, laundry list of achievements that I can use to sway you into believing that this tournament report will change how you prepare or perform at any upcoming Road to Nationals tournament. What I can offer, rather, is the fact that a lot of you, tuning into this station are dialed into the same frequency as I am. We share that insatiable appetite for improvement, for growth, and really accrued experience. We want to level up despite never really defeating that final boss. This is our journey to scrubbing out. As a preface to this tournament report, I want to give you a very brief origin story to this quest for glory. As a part of my career with card games, I've had the privilege of digging into the vault of experience of so many friends, colleagues, acquaintances, within this industry. Past champions, broadcasters and analysts, previous RTN winners. I feel like Pippin kind of eavesdropping on the Council of Elrond while they discuss strategy and prepare for events and, otherwise harmonize about the game. I am vastly outgunned here. I'm a mere X-Wing buzzing about an armada of Star Destroyers. I took what they could offer me and prepared for, a lot of hours ahead of my own RTN and really fine-tuned the deck that I was going to play to hum the sweetest tune. Then I changed my entire deck 13 hours before the tournament. Fuck it, am I right? Game 1 was against Chain, and arriving at an RTN in 2021 and seeing Chain is like kind of walking into a Starbucks and finding someone named Brittany. It is going to happen, and it is going to be annoying. The matchup is expected, frankly, and the question was where this inevitability would land on the timeline. Chain is one of my toughest matchups, given it becomes more and more smothering as the turns roll by. My opponent mentioned that he was new to the game and had borrowed his friend's Chain deck to compete. Really, the canvas was set here to paint an even more disappointing loss, I sensed. That was really coming around the bend. I shook off the nerves that had followed me from home, and I threw the dice to decide the turn order. A true determinant of cosmic favoritism here, the dice as they may be. Let's see how the day was going to go, frankly. Who did the gods favor today? Well, I rolled double ones. God is dead, and we're alone. Going second, I absorbed a punchless opener to fight back with a flurry of random attacks. A torrent of tempo here, a scar for a scar there. It was a disjointed effort, frankly. Hardly the graceful, combo-centric symphony that Katsu was supposed to pull off. I really wanted a waltz. What I got was some sort of weird, disjointed ninja crumping. My only way out was, frankly, to push damage and go full throttle. I cracked my Hearten's cross straps early to chain a Command & Conquer at the end of a lackluster salvo of mediocre attacks. The attack was blocked, and it was pretty much all downhill from there. A wave of enlightened strikes and Command & Conquers rained on my parade, and before long, I was at 15 health, staring down a 15 health deficit. I was eating so much damage, I was worried I'd shit Arcane. I was desperate for an opener and finally found some gas. It was time to turn on the ninja slices. It was all mapped out, ready to roll with a clear-cut combo line waiting in the wings. Unfortunately, however, an apt overblock squashed any hopes I had and milled my dreams into pure sadness grain. It was time to roll with the punches. I fought back valiantly, however, and whiffed on finding, any combo lines, so really that sputtered out pretty quick. I weaved through a couple turns of hurt before finding some more offense, bringing Chain down to 6 health with 2 cards in hand. My spirit perked up as an avenue to victory began to illuminate. Chain was defensive and spending multiple cards to block. One more turn like the previous one, and perhaps I could win this patchwork of a game. All right. Well, needless to say, completely forgot. Chain doesn't need the luxury of playing cards from hand. It was really death by bird feeder. Just seeds, and more seeds. Result, I lost 6-0 to Chain. Record 0-1. Game 2 was against Levia. Now, finally, a reprieve. I paired off against a Levia player, figuring this might be the easy bounce back that I deserved after opening the day in Chainland. My opponent was someone I had met before, having schooled me in a Monarch draft a couple weeks prior. The scene was set for me to cruise to a pretty stress-free dub here. Before we tossed the dice, another competitor passed by and complimented my opponent on choosing Levia, making a remark about her looks. Now, the game thus opened with us discussing the odd obsession that exists over Levia. Apparently, tentacle porn cross-pollinates with tentacle hair, and there's a sweaty fandom out there that would have her image on a body pillow if they can get a high enough resolution image to print. Before I even had a moment to digest what my mind state just ate, well, frankly, my opponent was already charging in for fat damage. Intimidates, tall swings, and crafty discards made for a pretty brutal few turns. I felt relatively frozen as I realized that many of my defense reactions were hiding in my sideboard. I genuinely did not prepare for Levia, and as a result, I hastily pruned out a myriad of cards with any particular rhyme or reason. I got slapped around pretty hard. At one point, some nifty hand maneuvering, a favorable roll on scabskin leathers, and a timely intimidation had me taking a pile of pain right in the teeth. It is a scary feeling when your only defense against Levia is to hope pity affects your opponent's decision-making. I even had the colossal blunder of activating Katsu and searching for a red crane dance that was nested comfortably in my sideboard. Blue it is, I guess. I was pinned down pretty hard on life total and had consecutive turns of drawing red hands. I made the best of it and had no choice but to eat the smash buffet. It was only when I was at 8 health that I finally drew some counterpunch. An actual hand materialized where I could feel relatively competitive. I strung together a fairly tasty turn, popping off on leg tap into rising knee thrust, into blackout kick, into snatch. My opponent blocked here and there, but mostly swallowed what I was feeding him. I more than equalized the game, holding a 6-5 lead. I felt much better, and for the first time all day, I felt confident. The reply to my tornado of offense was a simple 7 damage attack. I was holding a red Flick Flack, Hurricane Technique, red Surging Strike, and blue Rising Knee Thrust. I was expecting some fuckery and blocked with Hurricane Technique, thinking his floating pitch in arsenal could be danger. Besides the blue pitch in hand, Flick Flack was the only zero cost I had to use with Katsu to really wheel off a potential winning turn to fetch Whelming Gust Wave. I needed to preserve it and blocked for 3 instead of 4, bringing me down to 2. Yes. Now I know that Reckless Swing is a thing. I opened my turn with a pair of Kodachis. The first was blocked, the second was blocked with Reckless Swing. Set up a Casino of Despair. 2 cards in hand, 1 choice. Death awaits. If there's anything I'm terrified of, it's 50-50s. I looked him right in the eye and I asked him, do I have an out? He said, well, not really. So I chose a card. At the very least, it was a Majestic. So when I die, I want to die staring at dollar signs. I'm joking. We all know Brute has no expensive cards. Result, loss, 5-0. Levia win. Record, healthy 0-2. Third game was against Bravo. Firmly dug into the sore loser bracket. I suspect that my dreams have been shredded before I even got my third pairing. There was an outside chance I could make this work if I win the rest of my games. 1 foot in front of the other, and just don't trip over your shoelaces. I paired off against a close friend, actually, and who was really bringing the big showstopper himself, Bravo. Immediately, my confidence soared. This is no slight on him, but I had taught him the game, and he had never beaten my Katsu, like ever. I knew his deck pretty well, and I knew what to expect. It was merely a matter of sticking to a game plan, timely and movable, and, converting on proper combo lines. Now, I'll be brief in this one because it was pretty unspectacular until the last few turns. We traded shots, and although I was getting hit for more damage, he was getting hit more often. I managed to buy all the armor in a timely fashion, opening up situations where I could buy cards from his hand while threatening Mask of Momentum draws. This one was really about reading the opponent and when they sought to come through with a devastating crippling crush. The attrition was working in my favor as the Kodachi tickles were wearing him down. 3 red Sigils of Solace alongside some additional life gain gave him 10 points of cushion along the journey. And, whenever it seemed like I had him in my crosshairs, there'd be some juke or parry that stalled my game plan by a turn. Then, unfortunately, a disaster struck. It struck me right in the mouth. My opponent revealed Crippling Crush on top of his deck and were ready to absolutely throttle me when the turn rolled back to them. They loaded their arsenal, seismically surged themselves and passed it over. Luckily, I was holding onto Unmovable in the arsenal, ready to shut down their massive play. I made some throwaway attacks, knowing they wanted to keep their hand for that crippling crush. Filtered it down, redrew, and saw a bloody miracle. I got 2 blue pitches, red Surging Strike, and red Whelming Gust Wave. Now, with my opponent at 4 health at the moment, it was going to be a breeze. They declared dominance, tossed out Crippling Crush, still had pitch flooding with an open arsenal. With red Unmovable radiating in my pocket, I was suspicious of any follow-up. I knew Pummel was a thing. I knew it was played. I knew Mask and Tunic were expendable, but I brain lapsed and declared no defense because in my mind I could throw the equipment at the same time as my defense reactions. This, of course, is bogus, and I paid the ultimate price. I most definitely got hit with Pummel. I pitched for Unmovable, defended 8, got crushed, tossed my entire God tier hand, and I never really recovered from there. I lost the life game, frankly, the same sigils that I lent him before the tournament. On the bright side, though, it was absolutely great to see my buddy finally beat his nemesis Katsu when it mattered. I dig this loss, despite dishing out 45 damage along the way. The result was a loss. Bravo 4, Katsu 0, record hefty 0-3. Game 4 was against Chain. Now, walking into this match while down 0-3 is like being asked to run a marathon in cement shoes. Doing it against Chain is like being asked to do it with your pants down. At this rate, I already tossed aside any hopes of glorious comeback and relegated the day to learning experiences. If I come out of this a better player, win or lose, that is a victory. I played hot and heavy, eating a ton of damage to continuously clap back and keep pressure on. I needed a window to convert on a wide turn in order to make this win possible. I had burned whatever confidence I had left in my previous match against Bravo, and at this rate, I had 2 things to look forward to. Potentially beating Chain, and the pack of Twizzlers roasting in my car under the 100-degree sun. Now, either way, I had a sweet yet sticky situation to look forward to. My opponent burned a lot of their equipment early to Kadachi blocks, donating their Carrion Husk to a Surging Strike on turn 2. Though I was getting fed the entire game, I eventually caught my opening. A misplay in sequencing on their turn left them with some floating resources and nothing to do. A miscalculation, perhaps? We've all been there. Just today, I activated a Katsu to hunt for a card in my sideboard that wasn't there. Now, I get the feeling completely, but my sympathies weren't as deep as the Soul Shackles. With these equipment spent, I had a relatively free ride. I took a pounding to preserve a brilliant hand, getting hacked down to 12 health in a hurry. The hand I was holding on to was just absolutely magnificent. And nothing short of lethal damage was going to get me to shed any of these cards. With a red Plunder Run loaded up in the arsenal, the turn passed to me and my Tunic ticked up to 3. I opened with Plunder Run from arsenal and pitched a blue Rising Knee Thrust to open with a Kadachi. They accepted the charges, and I followed with a red Surging Strike for 8. They blocked 6, 8-2, I drew a card. I activated Katsu to flip the card I drew, a Crane Dance, to fetch Magenshi Release. I already had a red Whelming Gust Wave that was waiting rapidly to pounce. The follow-up red Whelming came in for 4, which was full block, depleting their hand. Runway was clear, all systems go. I cracked my arm piece, break through for 1, drawing 2. Pitched the Tunic to play Magenshi, pulling 2 Lord of Wind from the deck. I pitched 1, played the other, boosting it to 4 damage. Tossed my Snapdragons to give it go again, and swung in with another Kadachi, ending the Katsu Wet Dream with an Enlightened Strike for 7. All in all, it was a 21 damage turn, and my opponent was left empty-handed. They drew up and died to their own blood debt. This was the kind of poetic justice that I will one day look back on when I need inspiration to write a better ending to Game of Thrones. The result, win Katsu, 12 points, 0 for Chain, fat loss. Record, we're getting there, 1-3. Game 5 was against Dash, and everything after that massive kill on Chain, frankly, was just extra gravy. It was the sprinkles on a Sunday that I had already got for free. Now, mind you, the freeness of this Sunday was on account of the fact that, really, I had slipped and fallen on the wet floor at a Dairy Queen and ripped my pants open. But free ice cream is free ice cream. Whatever the outcome of this game was, I broke the goose egg and was free of that O for shame. My opponent was in the same boat I was. They had lost a bunch and were just enjoying the process more than anything. The sweatiness of the early rounds had dissipated, and all of us scrubs at the bottom of the standings were having a good time. We were laughing and conversing from the get-go, and he flat out said that he was playing a heavy control list because he enjoyed it. He didn't care about the viability or the meta. He merely loved the list and wanted to play it. That was great to hear, and we approached the game from a very casual angle. Attacks were coupled with jokes, and the game was fun to play, frankly. It truly was a spirited affair, as we both were fully enthralled by the spirit of what Flesh and Blood looked to drive home. The game was meant to be played across a table and not in the anonymous stoic void of a digital platform. If there was ever a game where this was the purest, Dash vs. Katsu stamped that home. My opponent spent a few slow turns setting up the pistol factory. By turn 3, his side of the board looked like Willy Wonka's factory with the amount of contraptions and odd characters lurking about. Katsu had to dodge gunslinging Oompa Loompas, while really having his offense smothered by a collection of defense reactions. So many fates were foreseen this game, you'd think it was a plot for Minority Report. The game wasn't too noteworthy or spectacular, as I took it to the chin, quite often to preserve my hand for the counter-assault. My key combo lines were adeptly blocked, making it difficult to trickle through for damage. The game dragged on, and though we were having fun, I finally got my opponent to a dangerous health total, hovering below 10 health. I drew up to find the magic line. The issue was that his water guns were fully loaded. I just needed to not take 12 damage, because that's all I had left. He moved in with a trio of pistol fire. My hand was a blue Lord of Wind, a red Surging Strike, Enlightened Strike, and a red Soulbeat Strike, with red Plunder Run sitting in the pocket, waiting to pounce. 3 counts of 4 damage were on the way. I let the first 2 land, giving me 4 health to cling to. On the third swing, I had a choice to make. Do I donate my Mask of Momentum to keep me alive, or do I block with Soulbleed Strike, thus making Enlightened Strike punchless? I figured if I was going to kill him, I needed to do it with this hand. I sacrificed the mask and went down to 2 health. It was a nice mask, but frankly, with COVID running rampant, I figured I didn't need 2 masks. I opened by pitching Lord of Wind and swung Kadachi for a hit. Followed up with Surging Strike, which got the full respect of an overblock. I revealed the Plunder Run and went in with a Soulbeat Strike for 7, which came through after a full block of 6, drawing me the fodder I needed to finish the game with Enlightened Strike for 7. It was exact lethal and immense weight off my shoulders. My opponent and I spent the next few minutes talking about the match and how we fared against the Chain Armada. This experience was precisely what I had missed over a few years of in-person card tournaments being on hold while the world sorts stuff out. The result was a win for Katsu, 2-0 win over Dash, and the record, a wholesome 2-3. The losses came early, and that was both a blessing and a boon. It sucks to have your hopes and dreams eviscerated before you even break for lunch, but I wasn't exactly expecting to kick the doors open and show the world that suddenly, out of nowhere, I was a threat. The blessing came from the fact that I met more players like myself. There were more of me out there who came to play competitively, but more so wanted the experience of a big event without the gravity of potential failure to impact the rest of their week. Hidden in this pedestrian's version of a tournament report is that silly disguised prize of the friends I made along the way, and I definitely got that feeling. Met a lot of people, spent some significant hours practicing and discussing cards with some bright minds who shared their wisdom. I learned a lot and enjoyed the path to a mediocre 2-3 record. I'm happy with that result, and happiness to me, frankly, is what I'm seeking when I shuffle my deck and draw my hand. I most definitely play to win, but I decided long ago that my mental health no longer hinged on bringing my opponent to 0. You can't win them all, and chances are that you won't ever win, but that doesn't mean there isn't incredible room for improvement. Each time you square up against your opponent is an opportunity to inch closer to what casual scrubs like us fantasize about, winning the big one. You're not losing if you're learning, so keep your head up, you'll get there. Maybe.